Hello everyone, Stephanie with you for LDRS Creative in a new edition of our 10 cards 1 kit series. Now we decided to rename it 5 cards 1 kit so that will give us more time to explain to you the techniques and to show you that new release. Talking about release, here's the very first stem set from this release, from the May release, called Puddle Jumper. It's absolutely fabulous. It has tons of sentiments, critters. Look at those little chicks that are part of the set. I know they're an absolute favorite of the LDRS Creative owner, Angie. There's also that little character that is under the umbrella and playing in the puddle of water. There are those accessories like the little puddle, there's the boots, the umbrella, the rainbow, the sun, and the little flowers that are so cute. And what I really love about this stem set, and what I think will make it a must-have in your crafty stash, is that you have big sentiments that coordinate with smaller ones. So it's an absolute blast. Now, of course, if we're saying that we have a Puddle Jumper stem set, we need the coordinating paperpack, right? So that is called the Puddle Jumper 6x6 paper pack and also available in 12x12. It is part of the Pattern Play collection, which means that you have 24 sheets that are double-sided with tons of amazing patterns on them. I seriously cannot have enough of these papers. And of course, we're bringing 2 new stencils because you guys love the stencils at LDRS Creative. So there's one that is called Rainy Day, and as you can see at the back of the packaging, it has multiple patterns into one. So I like to call them all-in-one stencils, meaning that you get the grass pattern, you get the rainy drops, you get the clouds, and then you get the skylines all into one stencil. And same thing for the coming up Daisies one. So in this one you have some kind of hills, you also have the tiny houses that are part of a super cute village in the countryside, you have 2 lines of gorgeous flowers, and you have also a fence that can be either stenciled in, inked in, so it's really a fabulous project. Plus, I'm going to show you later on how to use only one pattern out of the multiple ones that you get on that stencil. Moving on, we have the polka doodles lines. You guys absolutely adore them in the store. We know it. So we're bringing you critters. That's right. You have 2 sets. So one that has the large fox that I think it's absolutely adorable. You also have some kind of tree. Then you have the squirrels. You have 2 sentiments into it. And then we're bringing you the bunny sets, which is called 24 karat. So the bunny or rabbit, whether you want to call it this way, they're versatile. So you can use them all year round because they're not only for Easter. If you look at them closely and the accessory pieces in the stem set, including the sentiments, they're very, very versatile with the carrots and all. Now, if we're mentioning polka doodles, of course you're thinking of Winnie, and how about her big sister Holly? So we're adding 4 new Holly stems. There's one that is called Holly Just Breezing By. The second one is called Holly Spring Chicken, which is super cute. I love those tulips that the illustrator included. They're gorgeous. There's a third one that is called Holly Chirpy Chirp. That is so cute. And look at that little sheep right in there. I mean, I'm going to use that for sure. And I love that all the sets have coordinating sentiments and accessories that can be mix matching with other sets. And the last but not least is Holly Bunny Tail, and she has that gorgeous little bunny that is on the side, super cute, and you can see that they're clear stamps, so they're very good quality and they stamp like a dream. So that's it for our May release. And how about some inspiration projects, right? So I'm showing you this entire set and then we're moving on to our first project. Our first project is very easy peasy, and I wanted to show you that even though some pattern sheets can be a little busy for the eye, you definitely can use those. So I selected one of those sheets and I'm going to mat them with two colors of cardstock. So there's a baby blue and some yellow cardstock, and I'm going to be stamping, or better yet, embossing a large sentiment from the Puddle Jumper stamp set. So I decided to go with the Sunshine one. So first I'm prepping my surface. This is some vellum paper that I'm prepping with some anti-static powder. Then I'm using some Watermark emboss ink from the store to be able to kind of glue down that white embossing powder that is also available in the LDRS Creative store. And then I'm going to heat set everything with my heat gun. So it doesn't take long, and the white embossing powder is very opaque, so which is what I'm looking for, because with this project I really want to tone down a bit the pattern paper while still seeing it, right? Because it's so beautiful. And I'm also deciding to add a bit more to my sentiments, so I used a coordinating word that was part of the same stamp set, which is the Puddle Jumper stamp set, and it says, "You are my," so you are my sunshine. So now we're ready to assemble the card. So I'm going to stack all the layers of papers together, and then I'm going to create some kind of sleeve to my card. So I'm simply folding behind that thick layer of paper the side of my vellum paper. Then I'm going to glue them down, and I'm going to simply add it to my card base with some foam adhesive for more dimensions. So that will conclude our first project, and I think it's very simple to do. You could recreate it with your favorite pattern from the Puddle Jumper paper pack and any sentiments you like. Moving on to our second project. So this one is very, very fun, guys. So I have selected an A2 card base made of thick white cardstock, and I'm simply protecting the second lap, so the back of my card base, onto a piece of craft mat, and I'm simply protecting it with painter's tape because we're going to be inking. So I decided to go with the key lime pie and the olive branch hybrid inks that are part of the LDRS Creative store, and I decided to go with that little grass line that is at the bottom of the rainy day stencil. I really, really like that addition to the stencil. I think it's going to be fabulous for any kind of cards. So first I went in with that light green shade, which is the key lime pie, and I'm simply adding some touches of darker shades, so with the olive branch, because I want to have a bit of dimension into our layer of ink. Next, I decided to follow along the stencil instead of the yellow brick road. Okay, I know it's a bad joke. Moving on. So I decided to go with a pale gray ink that is called Aoi, and I'm simply inking in the rainy drops from the stencils. And why stop there? I decided to go along with the clouds that are also part of the stencil. So, and because when you look at that stormy sky that is typical of our spring season right now, you know that the sky is never one single color. So to add dimension, I'm adding a bit of gray and then a bit of blue and then a bit of darker blue. And when I remove all the painter's tape, there's magic literally on our card base. So now that our card front is totally inked, I decided to stamp on a piece of cardstock those little chicks that are so cute from the Puddle Jumper stamp set. So I'm going to do minimal shading onto these with some watercolor markers. I really want them to be super cute, but then not too much, because I want the attention to be on the whole project. And that is why you absolutely need this stamp set. Whether you're a beginner crafter or a more advanced one, this stamp set is so versatile. You'll get what you need. And I'm deciding to add a little bit of color onto my project, so I decided to put a little bit of pink onto my chicks. So there's one that has the little hat, so I'm adding a pink hat. And then I decided once again, so yes, I made a lot of decisions. I wanted to add those little flowers because I wanted to give a more positive vibe to my project. So I went in and stamped the little flowers that are also an accessory to the same stamp set, putting some pink in there and then a little bit of green with the leaves. And I'm going to fussy cut all my images, which means that I will be leaving a little white border all around the image and then cut them with some sharp scissors. So now that we have all our pieces, I'm simply adding some foam adhesive behind all of the chicks and the flowers, and I'm stacking them at the bottom of our card. So this is where you have the grass line, and because we had a little bit of shadow in there, it's going to give more depth, and that's all we want. And then we're going to finish this second project with a sentiment. So remember when I said that I wanted a more positive vibe? Well, I decided to go with the under the weather ? Sentiment, because this is the kind of card that you could send to a loved one, a friend that is going through a rough patch, and that will definitely lighten the mood. So here it is, second project completely done, and what a cute project using that rainy day stencil. Third project, we're going to be using one of those large critters that is brand new to the Polka Doodles lines. So I decided to stamp the I was going to say squirrel, but this is a fox. So I decided to stamp the fox on a piece of cardstock, and also that tree that is super cute has an accessory. And I'm putting minimal shading once again with some watercoloring markers. So I'm not going to show you the entire process, but what I want you to keep in mind is that although those images seem larger than your typical ones, they're actually easier because they have less details if you don't want them to be too complicated. So they're very easy to use, and I simply love them. So now that we have our two images done, off screen, obviously, I decided to create my card. So my card is going to be made of a piece of pattern paper from the Puddle Jumper paper pack, and then I'm going to be creating some frame to go around to go behind my fox. So I used the Eyelet lace rectangle die set. First, I ran it through my die cutting machine with some white cardstock, and then I added that rectangle right in the center so that when I'm going to be removing that part, I'll get a frame that is perfect to go onto my pattern paper. So I'm placing all the elements down, and then I realized that I needed a sentiment, right? So I'm also going to be embossing with white powder that sentiment that comes with the set that is called Nuts About You. So cute. I mean, I really like that. And as you can see, I decided to go with some purple for my cardstock to match that pattern paper. That pattern paper has so many colors that coordinate well that basically you cannot go wrong. Even though you might want to put red, well, red goes beautifully with navy. There's that pop of yellow. So purple was a lucky guess for me, and it works. So don't be afraid to try to mix up those colors. So now is the time to assemble everything. I'm simply adhering everything with regular adhesive, adding a bit of foam adhesive here and there, and then finishing with a little bit of drops, enamel drops here and there, and that's our third project. Now to our fourth project. We're tackling people that more, I don't want to say garnished, but more decorated stencil. So remember the Coming Up Daisy stencil. Of course, when you're looking at it, you're saying, yes, but if I ink it, there's going to be ink all over the place and different patterns, and I only want one of these. So here's the best tip that I can give you. With some painter's tape or washi tape, just cover the patterns that you don't want to have ink on. So that way, when you're going to be removing that painter's tape, you won't have anything. And I'm going to be creating some countryside type of card. So this reminds me a lot of when you go during spring and summer, you go around on a drive and you see those luscious grass hills all over the place. So I'm going to be creating a scene with those hills. So I'm once again mixing two types of inks, hybrid inks, onto my card base. And I first started from the bottom of the card base with that straight hill of stencil. Next, I'm moving a little bit higher and I'm simply like cropping, well, not necessarily cropping, but I'm angling my L to be slightly either on the right side or on the left side. That way, I'm not creating something that is static when inking down. So you're really going to get more out of your stencil by moving it around. And I think that it's very, very cute because then when you go back straight, like what I'm doing, then you'll feel like, oh, your stencil was way more than what you actually thought it was. So by blending two colors, you also have more dimension, more depth, and it's fairly cute. To be done with it. So when you're totally satisfied, you don't need to go around inking the edges like I'm doing, but obviously I cannot get enough ink on a project, so I'm inking all the sides because I really want to get the feel of that. We're in the country and we're looking at those grassy hills and we're like, wow, this is so beautiful. So this is your base. Now, I also don't want you to worry about if there's a spot of ink that you don't like because it didn't blend well. We're going to hide it. So I decided to use that little sheep that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I'm inking it with our true black ink that is called our Raven Hybrid ink. And I'm inking it several times. At first I thought that I wanted a whole family of sheep on my card base, which won't be the case in the end. So I ended up cutting 3 sheep and placing them with foam tape on my card base. But before that, I decided to add a bit of wow to the project by embossing a sentiment that was part of another stem set. So I used the sentiment from the springtime holly that is saying, oh no, I think it's called a bunny tail. Yeah, holly bunny tail. So it says, you put spring in my step, and I'm going to be playing with the words here because after embossing this with some gold embossing powder, I'm going to add the little sheep all over the hills, and then I'm going to draw in with a black pen a bit of movement so that as if the sheep were jumping in and out of the card base. So it's just a funny play of words. And here's a tip. If you're not sure about stamping the eyes right because you know they're so thin or so small, then you can go back onto your stamped image and then with a white pen that is very opaque, just draw those eyes back in and they'll be super cute. Nobody will know that they weren't there in the first place because you misstamped it or whatever. So this is another tip that I can give you. And here's our complete project. So cute, right? I mean, I would love to receive this. And now moving on to our final project. So this is the 5th one. I'm simply going to be stacking papers. So once again, I chose a piece of paper that was from the pattern play paper pack that is called Puddle Jumper. And I decided to go along with a second sheet. So as you can see, those patterns really mix well together. And I stacked them on an A2 white card base. This is my usual A2 card base go-to. First, my initial idea was to go with the rainbow from the Puddle Jumper stem set. So I had stamped it 3 times onto a piece of cardstock. And then I realized that it might be a bit busy for the eye. So I totally changed my sketch. I'm sure I'm not the only crafter who changed her mind on the way to creating her final project, right? So I'm simply coloring in that rainbow that is super cute, and because I wanted that card to be sent to a friend that is not feeling so well right now, I wanted to show a bit of color, so a bit of motivation, positiveness, etc. So it's going to be quite cute. And once that is done, once the coloring part is done, I'm going to be fussy cutting once again my image with some sharp scissors, so that way I can leave a thin white border all around it and be able to play with it. So, of course, we're missing a sentiment. So, because I wanted this card to be cheerful, to be sharing kindness and all, I'm going to be stamping a sentiment that says dance in the rain. So that way it's a positive outturn on the rain. And I'm stamping it once again with the true black ink that we have that is called Raven Hybrid ink onto a piece of white cardstock. I'm trimming it down very closely to the edges of the sentiment, and I'm going to mat it with a paper, some kind of blue cardstock that I used on the card base, so that way we had a bit more layers. And then I'm going to place it right in the center of my card base. I'm going to pop everything with some foam adhesive because there's never enough dimension, and that is all. So I hope you enjoyed that May release and that you get more inspiration tomorrow with the blog hop.